In life, the more you have to lose.
The more you love, the more you worry. The more you own, the less you sleep.
The more people rely on you, the more you have on your mind.
I have peace of mind.
Knowing that whatever I own
and whoever I care about are covered by the very best.
With Sagicor Life and Advantage General, get life, health, and general insurance to help you protect what matters most.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is another exciting episode 8 of the Sagicor Insurance series. Of course, it's Women Month, so we have to celebrate. And we have to give you some information for you to take it back to all the persons who want this information. So it's a good time to call, text, WhatsApp somebody. Tell them they need to check in right now. Whether they're on Facebook, IG, YouTube, they need to check in right now because I guarantee you, you'll be happy for the information that you're about to get. And call the men too. Please, a good time to call the men. So, we have some amazing panelists. My first is a specialist, a doctor, Dr. Leo Walker. What it is you do, sir?
Afternoon, thanks for having me. I'm Dr. Leo Walker. I'm an obstetrician and gynecologist, as well as a maternal fetal medicine specialist. Meaning we deal with ultra-high-risk pregnancies. Currently working at the Victoria Jubilee Hospital maternal fetal medicine unit, as well as at the Healing Women's Clinic, which I see my private patients at primarily.
Okay. Well, that's amazing. And I'm sure we have a whole heap of information to get from you today.
I would hope so.
Definitely. When we finish, you must feel like we name Doctor too. Sashana and Lam Spencer. How are you? What you do, Sashana?
I'm good. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sashana Spencer, and I'm a financial advisor at Sagicor Life Half-Tree branch.
Great. And of course, not to be left out, our friends from Advantage General, Dion Ellington. What it is that you do, Dion?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dion Ellington, team lead, Advantage General Insurance Company.
Okay, great. So I'm going to jump straight into the conversation. I'm going to start with you, Doc, because there's a whole world of information that I need to know about. So we're talking about the various layers of female health. And one of the first things I want to appreciate is, does nutrition has an impact on a female when it comes to fertility and all of that, female health?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we can look at it in terms of two aspects. Nutrition, health, overall wellness, just in terms of an individual's BMI. What we do know is that with increasing BMI, there's an increased risk
Hold on, when you say BMI, some of us think it's something.
Very sorry.
What you're talking about is
what we're referring to is the body mass index, which is essentially a calculation that we use on individuals' weight and height.
Okay.
You know, the higher an individual's weight relative to their height is the increase an individual's BMI or body mass index will be. With an increase in the body mass index, there are certain risks that an individual will develop: increased risk of diabetes, increased risk of hypertension, elevated cholesterol, and of course, a deterioration in their overall health. Now,
Doc, nowadays is fat aware, no? Is curvy aware? So what are you talking about?
Well, there's nothing wrong with a woman being curvaceous. It's just a question of whether or not this is now exceeding what is considered to be the normal body mass index. So I think that is the important factor. And again, health has many layers. So it doesn't necessarily mean that an individual who is overweight cannot necessarily be healthy. But certainly, you know, increased body mass index can definitely have a negative impact on an individual's overall health, because we do see correlations with obesity and overweight with, as I mentioned, things like diabetes, hypertension, and elevated cholesterol levels. So I think at first, if we're going to talk about fertility and the potential correlation between fertility and wellness, those are the things that we often have to look at.
Definitely. There is a big word that we keep hearing, and most of us don't really understand what it means. Endometriosis.
Okay.
What is that?
So endometriosis, to put it simply, what I like to explain it as is compare the uterus to a papaya, for example. The endometrium, well, it gets better, just hold on. The endometrium is really the lining of the uterus. So if we think about a papaya, we slice it in half. You have the skin, which is the covering of the uterus. We have the meat of the papaya that we eat, which is the muscular layer of the uterus. And then we have the seeds of the papaya, which would be the endometrium, or the lining of the uterus. Now imagine we're looking at a papaya tree and we're seeing those seeds on the outside of the papaya, on the branches of the tree. That is essentially what endometriosis is, when we have these ectopic deposits of endometrium in places outside of the cavity of the uterus.
But Dr. Walker, what could cause something like this?
Well, it is multifactorial, and there's different theories for why these things happen. One of the most significant theories is what we call the theory of retrograde menstruation.
Say that again.
Retrograde menstruation. No, man, of course. Grade menstruation.
All right.
So majority of menstrual blood and products will flow from the uterus through the cervix, through the vagina.
Yes.
Probably around 10 to 15%, however, of the menstrual products actually flow backwards through the tubes and back into the abdominal cavity.
Oh, wow.
Now, in a normal individual, that will have absolutely no effect. Your immune system will get those ectopic deposits of endometrium and just get rid of them, clear them spontaneously. However, in individuals who are predisposed to developing endometriosis, meaning they have a genetic predisposition, that normal process doesn't occur. And those deposits end up staying in those areas and remain hormonally active. So just as how the lining would bleed when a woman has her period, those deposits are also bleeding. And that is what contributes to the inflammation and pain associated with endometriosis.
So does endometriosis come with more bleeding outside of the period time?
Not necessarily. The hallmark of endometriosis is significant pain.
Okay,
and this pain,
really.
This pain is not just limited to when the period is happening, but often 1 to 2 weeks prior to the onset of that period, really, because that is when those hormones really start to increase, and therefore those deposits become very active.
Okay. So I've heard too many females tell me that they have excessive bleeding.
Right.
So that is not endometriosis, right?
Not necessarily, not necessarily.
So what might be causing something like that?
Well, what I would say is the most common cause of abnormal uterine bleeding in women of childbearing age is often what we call ovulatory disorders, primarily things like polycystic ovarian syndrome. Polycystic ovarian syndrome is what people often refer to as hormonal imbalances. So you'll often hear, women say that, they have a hormonal imbalance. Most of the time, that hormonal imbalance is secondary to something like polycystic ovarian syndrome.
But doc, can the food that you eat, can your nutrition affect that imbalance or cause that imbalance?
It can to a certain degree. It can to a certain degree. More so, an individual's body mass index can affect that imbalance. But also, yes, as you're alluding to, the diets can also affect it. Diets which are rich in phytoestrogens, so things like soy.
I see you're getting to one of my myths now, because anybody who know me well, right? I talk to a lot of the clients. I have 2 daughters, and soy products can't buy it in my house. So I mean, mark soy, it cannot be bought.
Right.
Because as far as I'm concerned, from it have soy, it's going to cause some greater issues. So tell me if I'm just being ridiculous.
No, you're not being ridiculous at all. As a matter of fact, there's growing bodies of evidence which actually show that soy are one of the main contributors to development and further growth of uterine fibroids.
Wow.
See
there, people? I was not lying. I got this. I'm on point.
So soy, red meats, as well as certain animal products which are rich in estrogens. For example, they may use certain medications to cause growth of things like chickens, so that they have greater yield of those products. So there are definitely certain correlations between an individual's diet and an individual's risk.
You see, you just mentioned something that scared me, You're mentioning that depending on how some of the foods that you eat, how they are raised, like the chicken, with all the hormones and stuff, it might cause an even greater issue.
Definitely.
In a female, well, male and female, but for now we're talking about female.
Yeah.
In regard to hormone imbalance.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to mention one of my other myths. And people, it's just Otis. It's not Sagicor Advantage General, it's just Otis myths. I believe that a female who is quite shapely, quite curvy naturally, has a higher incident of estrogen in their system. Wrong or right?
Well, we can narrow it down a little bit and be a little bit more specific.
Yeah.
An individual or a woman who has a greater number of fat cells will generally produce larger numbers of hormones.
Okay.
And the reason for that is your fat cells are what we call a primary site of aromatization.
Yeah.
Aromatization is a word which means a conversion of one particular hormone to another which is predominantly estrogens to androgens. So fat
What is
can be
androgen, sir? Sir, I'm taking notes now. When you throw them new word at me, you have to allow me. I hope the person's at home taking them notes now. Because after this, you must be an authority on female health issues. So give it to me.
Right, so androgens are those hormones like testosterone.
Yeah.
For example, both men and women have testosterone. Males generally would have higher levels or concentrations of testosterone.
Yeah.
But women also have testosterone, and these androgens are these fat cells
Yes.
that enable women to convert estrogens to androgens.
Yes.
That is what can often contribute to the hormonal imbalances that are seen in individuals who have a higher body mass index, which again comes back to why the body mass index is so important.
Wow, that is knowledge, you know. So all this time I'm telling people, so when them curvy, them have a higher estrogen, it's true-ish. But I just never know exactly why that is the case. So you mentioned abnormal bleeding, and you mentioned the endometriosis. There's another endometry word that I want you to explain.
Right.
Yes, man.
So what you're
I'm not
referring
saying
to-
I'm the authority on everything, you know. I'm a smart guy, but this one new to me. So explain that.
So what you're referring to was endometritis.
Endometritis.
Right.
Let me write it down. Endometritis. Yeah.
And generally in medicine, anytime there's anything that has, itis at the end, it's referring to inflammation predominantly.
Okay.
So now, endometritis is inflammation of the lining of the uterus.
Yes.
And this is something that we often see in patients post-delivery. So patients who have delivered.
Okay.
And what can happen occasionally is some of those products of conception, so a small piece of the placenta wasn't expelled or removed, remains on the inside and serves now as a source of infection, which causes now inflammation of the lining of the uterus. So that is now endometritis, which are a distinct entity from endometriosis.
Thank you very much. Dean, you had a question earlier that you wanted to ask.
I'm not sure if you're going to talk on that topic, but I would love to hear some more on menopause. I remember growing up, my mom, I'm hot. And I'm like, what's going on? But here I am living, I'm walking in her shadow.
Right.
I walked in here today and I'm hot. And they had to turn up the AC, and at nights, that is what wake me up from my sleep.
Right.
And then I noticed like 3 in the mornings is like I am fully awake and I can't go back to sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're referring to is really the vasomotor symptoms associated with menopause. Vasomotor refers primarily to hot flashes. Hot flashes occurring predominantly at night, which can often lead to insomnia or difficulty sleeping. So when we speak about menopause, what we're really referring to is a woman who has gone at least 12 months without having a period. Right? But often those symptoms associated with menopause can start at least 3 to 4 years prior to that last menstrual period, what we refer to as perimenopause. So women can start to experience a lot of those vasomotor symptoms, the hot flashes, mood swings, sometimes vaginal dryness, painful intercourse, bony pain, tenderness, forgetfulness. All of those things can be those associated symptoms occurring in that perimenopausal period.
I heard you mention bone.
Yeah, bony pain and tenderness.
Bone pain and tenderness.
Right.
So all of last week, just this bone.
Pain up.
Yes. And I'm like, I didn't do anything extra. So that's the result of it.
So you find that estrogen plays such a significant role in all of the body's processes in terms of brain function, heart function. So after menopause, when those estrogen levels gradually decline, there's an increased risk of things like stroke, heart attack, osteoporosis, which is a reduction in the density of the bones, as well as those other sometimes genitourinary symptoms. So women have sometimes a lot of dryness, pain during intercourse, burning when passing urine. And it often is pretty widespread and multifactorial and can affect an individual's mood and quality of life.
But Doc, you have to back up a little, You're gone way down into, I don't know what menopause is and when it started, at what age just I hear about it, but
you don't even know.
I'm clueless. I just know say if somebody going through menopause, don't trouble them.
So the average age of menopause is around 51 and a half years old. So most
reach
people,
that yet. They are far from that.
Right, absolutely. Most people will go into menopause at around age 51. But as I mentioned, most of those symptoms can start as early as 3 to 4 years prior to the onset of menopause. So as those estrogen levels start to decline, then the symptoms start to appear. So a woman can only be diagnosed as being in menopause in retrospect, meaning you would have to go on a full year without a period prior to saying that you are now in menopause.
I've seen quite a bit of females who have had to have surgery during that menopausal period. Is it a natural thing that there might be major issues that develop during that time, or it's just some outliers?
Yeah, well, what I would say is probably more incident or coincidental as opposed to causal.
Okay.
Meaning menopause in and of itself won't necessarily increase risk of having to do any particular surgeries.
Okay.
But often what you find is individuals around that particular age may have certain illnesses or may have an increased risk of certain things developing. So for example, maybe I had a history of uterine fibroids. By the time you hit menopause in your 5th decade of life, that is when there's now an increased risk of certain other pathologies, such as cancers originating from the lining of the uterus or disorders of the lining of the uterus, which may now necessitate surgery. So it may not necessarily be the menopause that caused it, but the age of those individuals may result in an increased likelihood of them having some surgical pathologies that now require intervention.
Okay. I know Sashana, like myself, we talk to a lot of clients. And most of the time, it's a female you talk to. They will tell you that they had a yeast infection recently, whenever. It's such a common thing to hear. Of course, like all of the men, I don't know what that is. But today, it's all about ensuring so we're all informed.
Right.
So, what is that, sir?
Well, generally speaking, yeast infections are caused by a particular fungus. The most common type is what we call Candida albicans. So that is why, they get...
Candida, all right, we don't need further.
Or just very simply Candida.
Candida.
So that is why most of the products which are used to treat yeast infections often bear some resemblance to that name, whether or not it's Candid or Candiderm.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's used to treat that particular fungal organism. Now, the vagina is usually kept in a very acidic environment.
Yeah.
Vagina is often pretty acidic, and it's kept that way because of particular bacteria which are, housed and grow in the vagina. Now, often our hormones, whether or not whether or not a woman has a period, whether or not, they're menopausal, all of those things can affect that vaginal environment. And once that vaginal environment changes from that acidic pH, it gives now a chance for certain organisms to grow.
Okay.
One of those organisms is Candida. Certainly, there are other things that can predispose women to developing yeast infections. So, for example, if you're diabetic, you have an increased risk of developing yeast infections. Women who are menopausal, because estrogen levels start to fall, that affects the vaginal pH. That can result in yeast infections. Sometimes even intercourse can result in yeast infections because semen has a different pH from the vagina, and it can often neutralize the vaginal environment and cause yeast infections.
You're hitting 2 myths that I want to ask you about too now, because I have a whole list of them. So you're coming close to one of them now. I've heard females say whenever they change their partner, they might get a yeast infection. 1, and 2, I've heard females say that yogurt is amazing for yeast infection. So touch those 2 things for me.
Well, with respect to yogurt, there's conflicting evidence because it's really not the yogurt itself, but something within the yogurt, a particular bacteria called Acidophilus.
Okay.
So it's that bacteria in the yogurt which is suspected to contribute to, reducing the risk of developing a yeast infection.
Yeah.
Now, as I mentioned previously, there's a bacteria in the vagina called lactobacilli, and it's called lactobacilli because it produces lactic acid. That is what maintains the acidic environment in the vagina. And it is thought that that particular bacteria in the yogurt, Acidophilus, contributes to that acidic environment in the vagina, therefore reducing the risk of yeast infections. What I do want to make clear, however, is that individuals may think that it is healthy to apply yogurt.
Yes, I'm happy you say it and not me, because I hear... Anyway,
so that is a definite no-no, because remember, yogurt has other things. There's other things within the yogurt which can certainly affect the vaginal pH and cause way more than just a simple yeast infection. There was one other thing that you mentioned. What was it?
In respect to what talk about?
Change the partner.
Anytime they change a sexual partner.
Right. So definitely, as I mentioned, semen is at the other end of the spectrum, so it's basic, whereas the vaginal pH is usually kept acidic.
Yeah, but what I mean is that they are normally okay with their partner.
With one particular
But
partner.
anytime the partner change,
Yeah.
they can expect problems.
Right, and that may be as a result of either changing the type of contraceptive that they're using. So perhaps previously they were on combined oral contraceptive, meaning a non-barrier contraceptive. And when they change the partner, they may opt to use a barrier contraceptive, like a condom, primarily.
Yeah.
Some women may have certain sensitivities to latex,
Yeah.
which can then result in irritation to the vagina and cause these infections.
Okay. Well, since we're going in that direction, I tell you, I have a whole heap of questions about where we're going. How does that affect fertility? And I'm going to go a little bit further when it comes to fertility, but how does that concern affect fertility?
Well, generally speaking, it may not have such a significant impact on fertility, because the truth is, the reason why the semen has that particular pH is to allow the sperm to navigate through the vagina, enter the cervix, and essentially find that egg and fertilize it.
Okay.
So it is that way for a purpose.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunately, as a result of that purpose, sometimes one of the potential side effects or offsets of that particular purpose is the development of a yeast infection. So it may not have such a significant impact on fertility per se, particularly because this is something which is not exceedingly common. But you do have some women who have, who are more sensitive to these changes than others.
All right, great. Just a reminder, you are allowed to ask questions. Post them, whether it is you're on IG, you're on Facebook, whatever you're on. Just post it. YouTube, post those questions, and I'll ensure that I ask the professionals who are here to give you the information. All right? I want you to mention something to me. Stress. Mm-hmm. I've heard so many stories of stress causing females to have irregular periods and fertility issues and all of that. Give me your appreciation of how does stress affect female and female health?
Well, absolutely. What I would say is that stress in isolation may not be the sole determinant in terms of an individual's fertility, but it can certainly contribute to impacts on a woman's fertility. There is abundant evidence which demonstrates that stress can impact a woman's cycle. What we even know is that individuals with certain psychiatric disorders, such as depression or anxiety disorders, actually have a higher incidence of infertility. So we know that psychosocial or psychological stress can definitely have an impact on fertility. There is also, theories about the impact on stress on the particular hormones which are produced in the brain. And these hormones can impact the ones which overall control a woman's cycle. So there is strong bodies of evidence, strong correlations between stress, whether it's psychosocial stress or psychological stress, and its potential impact on fertility.
Okay, so generally you want to ensure that if you plan to have a child, you don't allow stress to pressure you to lose that child.
Well, definitely I wouldn't say that it can result in, or there is a strong risk of miscarriage solely secondary to stress, but definitely we do know of its impact on a woman's fertility.
Because I want to segue to that, because I know Sashana has a product that you want to tell us about, and it deals with some of the impacts of fertility. So, stillbirth, what is that?
Well, stillbirth really refers to delivery of a fetus after 20 weeks with no obvious signs of life. There is also sometimes a weight diagnosis, meaning if the fetus weighs greater than 350 grams. That will often meet the particular criteria for diagnosis of a stillbirth. That is a different entity. For example, miscarriage. A miscarriage really just referring to a pregnancy loss occurring prior to 20 weeks of the pregnancy.
I would like to bring in Sashana, because she's the one who told me that I have to ask this question. So, Sashana, what has been your experience in respect to stillbirth or...
All right, Doc. So you mentioned stillbirth. There has to be a reason why it happened, right? I have a personal experience where my first pregnancy, 2 weeks before my due date, I just didn't feel movements. And then when I went to check it out, I was told that my baby was gone, right? So
hold on, 2 weeks?
2 weeks before my due date. So full-term pregnancy, right? And I did all my checkups. I had no issue during my entire pregnancy. And then I had to deliver that child normal. And also did a lot of tests and there was nothing. So what would you say about that?
Well, generally speaking, a stillbirth is never one of those events that we opt to not investigate, because there has to be some explanation as to why it occurred. So often following a stillbirth, there's usually a panel of tests that we want to do. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to evaluate and find out what could have potentially precipitated this event from happening. It's not to say that every time that we investigate a patient who has experienced a stillbirth, we're going to actually find an underlying cause. But it is our duty to investigate to find out what is happening and therefore intervene to prevent it from ever happening again. And that's always the goal. This is somewhat different from a miscarriage.
Yes.
In where 85 to 90% of miscarriages, when they do occur, particularly when they occur prior to 12 weeks, it's often as a result of some genetic abnormality, meaning something didn't go right during the formation of the fetus, which resulted in that early pregnancy loss. And therefore, we don't often opt to investigate it unless it is something which is now recurrent, meaning an individual is now having recurrent miscarriages, right? So I think that is often the distinction. It's never normal, right? Or it's never an event which can happen spontaneously, meaning it happens and we're up to not investigate when we're dealing primarily with stillbirths. It's often something that will warrant investigation, both of the mother as well as placenta and fetus, because we're searching for a possible cause. I mean, and that's important not only to prevent it from happening, but also for some degree of closure for the patient, for the woman. And it helps in terms of being able to counsel them to explain, okay, listen, this is why it occurred, this is what we found, and therefore this is what we can do. Because naturally there's going to be that hesitancy, that anxiety when it comes to getting pregnant again, and wondering if this is something which can happen or recur.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is the scare part. Of course, I wanted to get the difference between a miscarriage and stillbirth. Most females just blame themselves. And then you have so many men out there who blame the female too.
Right.
You lift up heavy things, you do whatever, go out too late, you drink whatever. Tell me, for instance, what are some of the things that might actually contribute to a miscarriage? Because you said stillbirth is next level thing.
Right.
But what are some of the things that might contribute to a miscarriage?
And I think that is the crux of the matter in terms of providing education so that women and men are aware that this is not something that they did that resulted in the loss. Again, primarily when we're referring to early pregnancy losses, miscarriages at less than 12 weeks. Majority of the time, as I said, 85 to 90% of the time, when they do occur, they occur as a result of some genetic problem, meaning during the formation of the fetus, something didn't go entirely correct, and therefore you experience the loss. As opposed to something simple like you ate something too spicy or you was lifting up something too heavy. That's never the case.
Oh, for real?
Never the case at all. And this is something which has been shown where they have numerous studies where they have patients who have experienced a miscarriage. They collect the products of conception and they do what we call karyotyping, meaning they check the genetics. And in 85 to 90% of those cases, they did find certain genetic abnormalities which could explain why that happened. So early pregnancy losses, it's never something that the individual or that the woman did or did not do. Yeah. Right? Most of the time, it's just something that happened during the formation of the fetus, which you could neither predict nor prevent.
So it's not because you drink soda or coffee?
No, absolutely not.
We have a question from Jamaica. It's not a real place. That's what the person's name is, not me come up with the name. Why after doing a surgery for endometriosis, a woman might not be able to conceive?
Well, again,
firstly, is that the case?
It can definitely be the case, but what I would add is that that is a potential complication that may have happened irrespective of whether or not the individual did surgery. Yeah. So as I mentioned, those deposits of endometrium are found outside the uterus and it can include the tubes. Yeah. And if there's inflammation, all of that inflammation can also affect the tubes, can cause scar tissue on the tubes, and therefore inhibit the normal functioning of the tubes, which is basically a conduit for sperm and egg to meet. So, I mean, the endometriosis in and of itself is a major risk factor for infertility. Now, the surgery, meaning in an attempt to remove those deposits of endometrium and restore normal anatomy.
Yes.
Right? Depending on the extent of the endometriosis, there's potential risk of damage to the tubes or those surrounding structures. But majority of the time, we're talking about problem which pre-existed prior to the actual surgery. So not the surgery itself that resulted in the problem, but endometriosis that caused that destruction and damage to the tube.
Wow, thank you so much. All right, we have to go to a break, but before we do, I'm going to be asking a quick question. And the first person to type it, no matter which platform you're on, you'll be winning something. When is Endometriosis Month, and what is a ribbon color? When is Endometriosis Month, and what is a ribbon color? If you look at me well, you might figure it out. So let's go to a testimonial by a very good friend of mine. Let's hear what happened.
I am Kristen Golding, and I live to love. My first trimester was actually pretty good. I had that nice pregnant lady glow, but at 25 weeks, everything changed. I was rushed to the hospital where they told me that I may be at risk for preterm birth. My son Ty was born at 28 weeks and 3 days. He was 1 pound and 13 ounces. Having a premature baby was expensive. Being on bed rest for weeks was also expensive. Luckily for me, I was provided health insurance from my employer. I added supplemental benefits just to have a little extra coverage. Out of $1.6 million, I only ended up paying $2,500. My advice to other women, get coverage. Protect yourself and protect your family.
Welcome back, welcome back. Sure you guys have been learning a lot. If you're just joining, then you might need to re-watch it, because I just got a full lecture in respect to a lot of the female health issues that just tell me, say, I need to know more. So I will definitely have to be calling on your doc, because I need to know. But the good people of Sagicor Life, Sashana has a particular product that is going to be helping you in as many of those possible issues regarding fertility. That can help you a lot. So, Sashana, what's the name of your product?
Okay, the name of the product is Total Woman, and it's available for females between the age of 18 to 65.
So 18 to 65?
18 to 65 years
All right.
old. Right. So they will have 4 options of enrolling.
Yes.
Option 1 would be getting critical illness and life insurance. Option 2, it's critical illness, life insurance, pregnancy complication, and newborn benefits. Option 3 has life insurance, critical illness, and investment. And of course, option 4 has everything.
Okay.
That's
before you go too far, we understand the life insurance. That's,
right.
Yeah, all we know, all we have to go, and you have to get coverage. What type of critical illness coverage does it offer? Give me an idea, a couple of them.
Right, I'll give you a couple of them. You have protection against occupational HIV, you have stroke, paralysis, heart attack.
Okay.
Those are some of them.
Okay, great. Now, pregnancy complications. That is a big one. That is why we're here. That is why we invite the doc.
Right.
What type of pregnancy complications?
Right. So Dr. Leo mentioned even miscarriage. So we have coverage against ectopic pregnancy, also emergency C-section.
Hold on. Doc, what is ectopic pregnancy?
So ectopic pregnancy, as the name really suggests, is the pregnancy being located in an area outside the cavity of the uterus.
Okay.
Now, the most common site for ectopic pregnancies are actually in the tubes.
Yes.
So things like endometriosis can increase the risk of ectopic pregnancies. And those pregnancies will often not develop simply because that pregnancy will outgrow the caliber of the tube and result in a rupture or damage to that tube.
Oh, sure.
Which is why they often lead to, or can often lead to, emergency surgeries to remove that pregnancy as well as remove the tube.
Wow, scary. So what are some of the other things it covers?
Right, stillbirth. We spoke about that earlier. Stillbirth. Also preeclampsia, which is very...
What is that, Doc?
Right.
So preeclampsia is a pregnancy-specific morbidity, usually occurring after 20 weeks, where the blood pressure becomes significantly elevated and women start to spill a lot of protein in the urine. So it's multi-systemic in that it can affect the brain, the lungs, the heart, the kidneys, the liver.
I've heard of many situations where ladies say they get high blood pressure after they have a child. So that is the same preeclampsia.
Well, it may not be, because you do have a spectrum of hypertensive disorders of pregnancy, but generally speaking, when you hear women speak about the pressure becoming very high in the pregnancy, either resulting in them needing urgent delivery, what they're referring to for the most part is preeclampsia, but it's not exclusively preeclampsia.
Okay, great. Anything else?
Doc, I wanted to ask you, I've heard a lot of cases in recent time of preeclampsia. Is it that we're doing something wrong as women? What is causing?
No, it's not that we're doing something wrong, but generally speaking, the overall incidence of preeclampsia is around 15 to 20%. So it is fairly common, and it is especially common in individuals of African descent. It's also common in individuals with certain comorbidities, so diabetes, hypertension. And because women are often, especially more commonly now, delaying childbearing for pursuit of career.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
You find that women are
getting... We'll go too deep in that one, Doc, because some people
you find
you
find that women are getting pregnant at later ages. Right. And as a result, the later you get pregnant, the more likely it is that you're going to have some of those chronic illnesses.
Okay.
The other thing is preeclampsia is increased in women age greater than 35 years. So that may be one of the contributing factors as to why the overall incidence now seems to be a lot higher than previously.
Okay.
That is a big one, you know.
It is.
I don't want to go too deep, but it's true. I believe, anyway. Sashana, you mentioned some of the things that covered. Anything else?
There are also newborn benefits. So, for example, you have your newborn child, there's coverage for that child also. And if there's, for example, complication with your newborn, such as Down syndrome, there's protection in the total woman.
Okay.
It also allows your females to have cancer checkup at the Jamaica Cancer Society. It's a part of the package, as well as medical checkups at our paramedic unit. So it's a very, as it says, total woman. It covers everything related to women and real life women situation. When we're pregnant, our body changes, there's a lot of things that's happening, and it's so good that Sagicor has this product that we can have coverage. I mean, if I had this product when I had my experience, I would have gotten 25%. I still had to pay all medical bills at the hospital. So it's a very good benefit.
So ladies and gentlemen, you need to get this product before you're pregnant. Don't wait till you find out say you're pregnant and then you're going to go apply for it. It's not so it works. Ensure you get this policy before you're pregnant, right?
Right.
What are some of the things you might need to do to apply for this?
All right, so to apply for it, you need to speak to a financial advisor, of course.
Yes.
And the application, when I'm guiding clients, I tell them your personal history, your lifestyle history.
Yes.
For example, person smoke, drink, it can affect you. If you're overweight, as we mentioned BMI before, it can affect your coverage as well as your pricing. So you want to reach out to a financial advisor, and depending on what you want in terms of the benefits, you can apply for it.
All right. I have some more for you, Sash, but I'm having a question here. What are polyps and what impact can this have on infertility? And if surgery is done and they are removed, are they something that can grow back?
Well, generally speaking, I can only assume that the question is referring to what we call endometrial polyps.
Okay.
So polyps originating from the lining of the uterus.
Yes.
So polyps are basically small outgrowths from the lining of the uterus, which often have increased vascularity or blood flow.
Yes.
So they may commonly present with intermenstrual bleeding, meaning you have your period, and in between that period and your next period, you're having bleeding or spotting.
Okay.
Now, polyps can potentially impact fertility with respect to implantation, but generally speaking, a polyp in isolation is not going to have a significant impact on a woman's overall fertility. They can be removed, and once removed by a trained professional, they're not going to have any significant impacts on future fertility. But certainly they can grow back because they grow in response to estrogen. Any woman
so the same thing that caused them to grow the first time might cause them to grow again.
Precisely. What we do know is that there are certain risk factors for polyps. So everyone won't have polyps, but certainly women who have polycystic ovarian syndrome, or women who have a increased BMI, again, body mass index, because they're producing higher levels of estrogen, they have at an increased risk of developing polyps.
All right. There's a heavy question that I have to ask you about, you know. This big word, fibroids. Fibroids. What is that all about? What is fibroid?
Well, fibroids are essentially benign tumors. So they're not cancerous. They're benign tumors originating from that muscular layer of the uterus.
Okay.
So previously when I was describing the uterus, we likened it to a papaya.
Yes.
So the muscular layer of the uterus would be the meat of the papaya, essentially.
Yeah.
So fibroids are basically this very firm, fibrous tissue that originates from that layer. Now, women of, again, Afro-Caribbean descent are actually have an increased risk of developing fibroids because they actually have a genetic predisposition where there's a mutation in that particular line of cells which are responsible for developing the myometrium or that muscular layer of the uterus.
What is the likelihood of a female, normal Jamaican, developing
Well, I mean, this may come as a surprise, but 80% of women of Afro-Caribbean descent have fibroids.
Wow.
80%, so that's 8 out of 10.
Did you hear that, people? 80% of females, especially from African descent, has a high likelihood of developing fibroids.
Right.
Another myth that I want to dispel is, does having kids, especially early, reduce the likelihood of having fibroids?
Well, pregnancy actually reduces the risk of a number of morbidities. Fibroids is one.
Yeah.
So with pregnancy, there is at least a 10-month, at a maximum, sustained period of reduced estrogen production, particularly the estrogen, which is notable for contributing to growth of these fibroids.
Oh, hold on, let me fully understand you. So what I'm hearing is because during the time that you're pregnant or just after pregnancy, you're not producing that level of estrogen, you're not having your normal cycle and all of that, then it reduces the feeding of what would be those type of...
Right, so it's actually twofold. One aspect is a reduction of that particular estrogen which contributes to fibroid growth. The second factor is majority of the blood flow to the uterus is now being redirected to the fetus and the placenta.
Okay.
So the fibroid is often, or blood flow to the fibroid is often reduced.
Yes.
And fibroids can often what we call degenerate during pregnancy.
Okay.
Meaning instead of being firm and tough like a cricket ball, the consistency often becomes more like a tennis ball. Right?
I always hear the term that the baby feed off the fibroid, but it's not that.
No. Definitely.
Can it disappear by itself?
It's unlikely to disappear by itself, particularly in a woman who still remains of childbearing age, because as long as you're producing estrogens, the fibroid will either remain or continue to grow.
Yeah.
The growth or the rate of growth is highly variable from one woman to the next, however. Generally speaking, you do have women who have solitary, meaning one extremely large fibroid, or women who have multiple small fibroids.
Yeah.
So it's often very difficult to predict how fast they will grow, how rapidly they will progress.
So what is the major health issue when it comes to fibroids?
So the major health issue is the main complaint that women who have fibroids experience, which is either heavy periods or painful periods.
Yes.
Now, because of the location, because they're located within that muscular layer of the uterus, the uterus cannot perform its normal function. The function of that muscle is to constrict or contract, thereby squeezing those blood vessels that supply the lining of the uterus to minimize the amount of bleeding you experience when you're having a period.
Wow.
If you have these large fibroids within that muscular layer, the uterus cannot perform that function effectively, therefore resulting in excessive bleeding during the period. Right?
Definitely. So Shauna, you mentioned total woman for the major pregnancy-related stuff. But how about health insurance? How does that work?
Okay, so your health insurance will help you as a woman to do your regular doctor's visits. Also, there is maternity benefits. So whether you're having normal delivery or cesarean delivery, it covers that. So, and also your regular medical checkups. So it's good to have a health insurance as a woman or as an individual.
Well, definitely. And how does the critical illness or the pregnancy complication, how does that pay out? It reimburse you or just pay out lump sum?
It pays out, if it's a pregnancy complication, depending on which one, it pays out between 20% to 25% of the sum insured.
Okay, great.
Right.
Well, I have a whole host of questions for you, Dion, but I'm going to go to a giveaway first. So I hope everybody is ready. Remember, I have the winner already from the last one. But YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, get ready to type. The question is, share 2 benefits of Total Woman. You heard Sashana talk about it a while ago. Share 2 of the benefits of Total Woman. We're going to go to a quick break, coming to you from Advantage General. They're going to show us an ad, and then we come back as to what Advantage General has for you, women.
Hi, morning. 487, please.
487, lucky numbers.
Hi.
Hi, your change is 487.
And the winning numbers are 487.
In 2022, Jamaica recorded 488 road fatalities, one more than the previous record in 2021. Let's be street smart and drive safely. It is to your advantage.
Welcome back. I know a lot of females are uncomfortable with that advert, you know, because some of you put on your makeup and all them stuff while you're in the car. But, Dion, let me firstly ask you, which of the genders have the higher incidence of accidents?
And you know, that's a good question. When we analyze the data, we have found that female has less accidents than male.
Seriously? After them dip on them phone and them trying to do everything one time?
Yeah, but we're maybe skillful at doing it.
Okay, okay.
But yes, it has proven that females have less accidents than male.
Okay.
And as a result of that, we tailored products to suit that category.
Okay, I know of the product. I know of the Ultimate Woman product. I've heard about it, but give me some more information.
So this came up as a result of, we mentioned earlier, of looking at our books and doing our analysis.
Yes.
We realized that we need to reward females.
Mm-hmm.
So we have devised our product that tailored to the needs of female drivers. Of course, there are conditions. Of course, you have to be between the age of 23 to 80 and the owner of a valid driver's license for 2 years and more.
Okay.
Right? Accident-free.
Yeah.
Right. Because it is a special rated product and very competitive. You have to.
So when you say special and competitive, it doesn't mean say cheap.
Yes, because
it's cheaper than the man one them. I'm not trying to say, but you're
and
not,
I would say yes, because you're rewarding for good drivers. You know, like if you do good, your mom would have, or your teacher, put it that way, would have given you a star, eh? Because you're doing good, so you get the reward, and it pays off. So
I hear you. I feel a little bad because, Doc, me and you know, whenever you and a female going out, is you driving.
This is true.
So, you know, we have more accidents because we drive more. But anyway, I'm not going to get vexed. I'm just leaving it there.
Remember, you have the figures to prove.
Yes.
And once you have that, then you're standing on solid grounds, you know? Right.
So how hard it is for you to get this Ultimate Woman plan?
Okay, so it is, once you meet the criteria, which I've mentioned some of them, right? It's a 1-2, so to speak.
Okay.
And we have now launched our digitization, wherein you can go online.
Okay.
You can do your insurance online. It's like taking insurance home to you.
That's amazing.
Yes, we have really revolutionized our business. And for it to be ease in doing business.
I'm loving that. I'm loving that because I've told you guys before, normally I fall asleep when I insure my car because I go sit down for too long. But now you're saying we can do that online.
Yes, yes.
And if we should apply online, what would be the requirements after that? Because I know there are some things that you need to formally get your certificate. So let's say I apply online. How much time do I have to bring in the rest of documents, and what do I need to bring in after that?
Okay, we usually give minimum 7 days, right?
Okay.
But in doing the business, it is a requirement for you to have evaluation.
Okay.
Good. And of course, to be claim free, and you can assess that by looking at the person's driver's license, right? And of course, but
it don't make sense to like, you guys have access to everything.
That's right.
Yeah,
We
just for the record, people, they all have the same information.
Yes, we are so online with TAJ and transport authorities, right? And of course, in doing that, we assess the risk. Once you meet the criteria, we assess the risk, and then we can quote you a very competitive premium.
Well, it sounds good. Do you have a lot of take-up? Do you have a lot of females coming in who qualify for that? Because it sounds like a really good product.
Of course, what we look at, especially for females, a lot of them are now buying the latest model vehicles.
Okay,
and that's
it's not just the moms. It's not just the moms. They have other vehicles. Yeah.
Yes. And so once they fall in that category, which is if you're new to Advantage, then that value of the vehicle must be 4 million and over.
Okay.
If you're being on our books and you're doing renewals, subsequent renewals, minimum value is 3 million.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So once you meet those criteria,
okay,
you're
great.
good to go.
It sounds like an excellent product that we need to get out there. Although I'm waiting on the man one, but all right, we're not.
We do have a male, which is prestige, but it speaks of both genders, though, both male and female. But
you hear that, Sashana? The one that they have for man speak to both man and woman. But no comments. It's Women's Month, so I'm not going to go down that line with you. I'm just going to leave it there.
I'm sure someday we will get ultimate man.
No comments.
But it has great benefits. For example, free valuation. I mean, we pay for that cost every year. Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, that is brand new to me. You pay for the valuation?
Yes. By providing a free valuation voucher, and we bear the cost. And that's one. Windscreen.
Yeah.
Right. One of the benefits you can claim 2 windscreens per year without it affecting your no claim or your premium.
But we're concerned about somebody who's going to lose 2 windscreens in 1 year, though.
Can I tell you something? I had a client. The first windscreen, and it was settled, and 1 week later, he had another one.
Stop park under the mango tree there.
I was about to tell you. Yes. So at times you can find that.
Okay.
Yeah, but once the vehicle is not damaged,
yes,
you automatically qualify. If it is damaged, then that is now a claim.
A different kind of claim.
That is now a claim, right? And another benefit is key replacement. We recognize again that persons are buying these new vehicles, and most of them are touch start. So that key is so computerized. It has in a lot of information. And can I tell you, it's very expensive.
It's me, must tell you. No, people on the door. Oh gosh, I have a horror story. Last Mickey is $500,000 for replacement.
I agree.
Oh, wow. Literally.
Yes.
Literally $500,000 for replace it. So no lose your key.
Right.
No lose your key.
Right.
But that's amazing though.
Yes.
Well, so how do we get more information? What's your website or whatever, or how do we find you?
Okay, our website is www.advantagegeneral.com. We have 10 locations in
all over Jamaica.
All over Jamaica, but we have Kingston, Mandeville, Black River, Sav, Maypen, Mobay, all over Jamaica.
Yeah.
We are centrally located.
Well, I see one of your customers commenting, saying that I recently renewed my AGIC car insurance online, and it was easy. It was very easy and convenient. Right. It's a real game changer and time saver. Is one of your staff right this? No, Monique. Monique Sink. You don't know Monique?
No, I don't.
All right. Well, big up Monique.
Yeah, but I can agree that, yes, this is the way the company wants to go.
Yes.
I mean, ease of doing business and in doing business in your home.
Yes.
You know, you did mention your long line, and that long line takes up a lot of time. You know, so yes, this is where we want to go, and we like those testimonies.
Well, that is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Before I come back to you, Sash, Doc, I tell you, I need so much more information. I don't know how many times we have to go to this series. But your closing remarks as to just how a female can better protect her health and fertility.
Well, generally speaking, the first step that we always advise is lifestyle modification.
Yes.
So healthy diet, exercise. I think those are the two basic foundations for overall good health.
Yes.
Not just for a woman thinking about pregnancy, but just a woman throughout her entire life.
Yeah.
Certainly with respect to pregnancy, good health prior to pregnancy will have a significant impact on the risk of pregnancy morbidities.
Yes.
And generally speaking, if you're going into pregnancy at the most optimized health,
yes,
then chances are the pregnancy will proceed uneventfully.
Great. And that's what we want. A very simple pregnancy, a boring pregnancy. We get the excitement from the child when the child born. We don't want the excitement before. Sash, I know some persons are excited about your product. How do we find you to get them onto this Total Woman?
Okay, great. My contact number is 876-489-4457.
Yes.
Email Soshana, that's SOSHANA_Spencer, SPENCER @sagicor.com.
All right, you hear how to find her.
To enroll.
Definitely need to enroll. I tell every female I talk to now, if you're of childbearing age, get a Total Woman. No question, no insight. Get a Total Woman. I've had so many clients who have collected from this plan for something as simple as C-section.
There you go.
You know, most females, you get so fearful for C-section, not just because of the cut, but because of the cost.
Right.
But you have some money to collect, so don't worry. Get your Total Woman. Thank you so much for that, Sashana. It has been another amazing episode. We learned so much. This is one of those things that you need to tag, flag, or something so that you can send it to your friends. And I tell you, if your husband never hear, if your boyfriend never hear, send it to him in one link because he needs to know. All right, thank you so much. It has been great talking to you guys. See you next time on the Sagicor Insurance Series.
In life, the more you have to lose.
The more you love, the more you worry. The more you own, the less you sleep.
The more people rely on you, the more you have on your mind.
I have peace of mind,
knowing that whatever I own
and whoever I care about are covered by the very best.
With Sagicor Life and Advantage General, get life, health, and general insurance to help you protect what matters most.